Hi everyone. So today we'll explore the system hacking with Ruby section. This is section 1. This section starts with basic skills required to interact with systems, file manipulation and executing system commands, then introduce traversal competencies, parsing common data file formats and Unix files. So the video will be file manipulation, parsing HTML, JSON, YAML, XML, TOML, command execution, interact with files in the /etc directory on Unix systems, and a bonus video about string conversion, encoding binary decimal, hexadecimal, base 64. So, in this video about file manipulation, we'll see how to create and open files, read and write files, delete files, how to retrieve files informations, as well as how to find weak file permission on the system. So let's start with creating and opening files. So for that, we'll need a text editor. I'm using Virtual Studio Code. So to create a file, there are several syntaxes. The first, we can create a variable and use the file class that is included by default. No need to require anything. Start a new instance, then specify the file we want to read, then specify the mode, and this allows us to open a file. Then we can do as much operation as we want. And finally, we have to close the file handler. So this is the whole good method. There are at least 6 modes that I will copy paste right here. So a read-only mode, a read-write mode, so this is the same as read mode but with a sign plus. A write-only mode, a read and write mode, etc., etc., and an appending mode in order to add content to an existing file. So, for an example, let's just create a file with nothing in it. I will name that file create.txt. As I want to create a file, I'll need to be able to write. So I'll use W plus mod. I won't add any content to the file, and then I'll close the file handler. So that's just it. So let's execute that script. And now we can see the file create.txt has been created. To open a file, it's very similar, but we have just to replace the method new by the method open. And we can also open it with the read and write mode to read or write. So now, let's say we want to write into the file. I believe this is the next step of this video. So to write into the file, we can use the methods put, the same that we use to display stuff. So this will basically write some text into the file and add a line break. So we want to test this. And as you can see, the file contains 2 lines. So now we can do the same thing, but without adding a new line. For that, we'll use the write method. Now we can see no new line was added after that, so there is no fourth line. To illustrate, I will create a new line, and this will be on the same line. As you can see. But this way of doing is a bit old school, because when you open a file, you have to remember to close it well, the file handler, else you can expect some errors or some unexpected behaviors. And also this can be a bit less intuitive and a bit less elegant. So a better way of doing this is using file blocks. So for that, we don't need to, I will create a new file. So for that, we don't need a variable. We'll just call the file class, open a file. So let's say new one, def.txt, block.txt. We want to be able to read and write, but this time we'll open it as a block. So this time we just a block like this, and we can do exactly the same thing in the inside, but we don't have to fear to close it. So this basically do exactly the same thing. Now, if we want to read a file, there is a way easier and shorter syntax for that. So let's display the content of what we will retrieve. we just have to call the file class, call the read method, just specify the file we want to read. So for example, loc.txt. We don't need to specify the mode because this is implicit. We want to read the file. So this will read the whole content of the file and load it into memory and then automatically close it. So we don't have to do nothing else. So reading a file is very easy. No, sometimes we want to be able to read lines of a file line by line and not the whole file at a time. So to do that, we'll call the method readLines. So this is easily memorizable. Let's read create.txt. Use the classic Ruby operator each. Again, we open it as a block. We name the block variable line. And now we can, for example, display each line. So this will have the same effect as the read script we saw before. But this time we can manipulate each line like we want. So for example, putting a code before and maybe jump to remove all extra trailing spaces. So for example, I will add some trailing space like that. Let's execute. As we can see, each line was preflagged. And on the thing could be to use each with index to have the line number as well. So this way we have the number line of each line. The index is starting from 0, like an array in programming languages, but maybe we want something more human readable. So we can just add +1, and this way we have the line number. The next step will be to learn how to delete a file. So this will be very straightforward as well. This can be easier. File dot delete block.txt. And as we can see, the file was removed. Another thing handy could be to check if the file exists before trying to delete it. Let's see what will happen if I try to remove a file that doesn't exist. I can call this script a second time. Now the file block.txt doesn't exist anymore. So there I have an error, no such file or directory. So what I could do is remove the file with an inline if file so this part, the file with an exclamation mark is a method to check if a file exists, and it will return true if the file exists and false. So this is just an inline if, so it's exactly the same thing as writing if with a block, but it's just shorter. Now we can try again, and this time we have no error because this was not executed as this was false. Now let's see how we can check some metadata information about a file. So for example, we want to see the size of a file. So let's open a file create.txt. We just want to read it, so this will be enough. And now what we can do is return the file size. So as we can see, the file is 78 bytes long. As you can see, this is the correct length. We could also check if the file is empty. So let's create an empty file. To check if the file is empty, there is an ND method. So if file.0, so 0 check if the file size is 0, so it means it's an empty file. So we'll display it's empty if the file is empty, and else we'll display this. Also, we could check the file permission easily with some helpers. So for that, I will open maybe an interpreter. This will be easier to see the result. So ERB is the Ruby interpreter. To check if a file is readable, so normally create.txt is readable by anyone. So this should return true. Now we can check if the file is writable. As I'm the owner of the file, this should return true as well. We can see the file is not executable by anyone. So if I ask if it is executable, it should return false. I could make the file executable. And now check, and I can see the file is now executable. And finally, the last step will be to use Ruby to find some weak file permissions on the system. So this can be usually done with the find command, but here we are interested to do the same thing, but with Ruby. So let's say we want to write a script that will find all executables, all files that are executables and writables in a folder or in many folders. This could be helpful, for example, to find some binaries that are maybe executed by a cron job or something like that, that we could modify to elevate our privilege on the system. So for this, we'll use the find module. This is a module from the standard library, so it doesn't need to install any gem. We'll read the folder or the path we want to check from the standard input. So for that, we'll read gv0. So this is the first argument from the command line. So we want to check in that path. So our search query will be to find files in the provided path. Maybe we can create a reusable function. So let's declare a function. So this search will contain the path we want to search in, that we pass as an argument to the potential EOP file function. So now it will enumerate all files in this path. What we want to do is keep only the files that match our criteria. So we'll do search.select as a block. So select will keep only the files that match the criteria we decided, and we use a block variable. So this will enumerate each file in all the files in the path. So now we'll start by checking, as we saw earlier, is if the file exists. So if the file exists, we also want the file to be an executable, but we are not interested in all executables. We want only the executables we can write, so only the ones we could potentially modify to elevate our privileges. So we'll check for writable files as well. Now I can maybe create a subfolder with some dummy files. Let's open the terminal. I will make a dummy file executable. So now let's use our script we just made. So I need to give a path as an argument. So I just put a dot to say we want to search in the current folder. Oh, I made a typo in the script. Let's correct that. Right here. Nothing is displayed because I think I forgot to call the function and to print the results. So let's display So the only files that are executables are the exec.txt and the create.txt that I don't see. Right here at the beginning. So we could potentially do some more complex scripts. For example, to find some SUID files. So this is it for today. In the next video, we'll see how to parse some common formats like HTML, JSON, YAML, etc. Have a good day!